And welcome back to part two of the hockey podcast you're about to hear. And we are going to be starting in the Western Conference. So let's hit the Central, I guess, and start off with Arizona. Start this off on a great note,
Ugly. Let's move on.
huh? Fair enough. Ugly. Moving on to Chicago. Ugh.
Oh
That didn't go very
gosh, what's
far.
below ugly? What's below ugly?
Yeah.
Very, very, very ugly. All right,
Despicable.
so this is something that we do need to address on this podcast,
Agreed.
and that would be which we have talked about at different points, but now we actually have some results, some consequences, some
Mm-hmm.
furthering of the story, which is heartbreaking to maybe say the least.
Yep.
Um, which if you follow hockey, you know about this. If you don't follow hockey, you listen to this podcast just to, I don't know, as a form of entertainment, which would be weird. Um, More power to you. Uh, Basically, the Chicago Blackhawks back when they were on a Stanley Cup run in 2010. There was an incident between one of their young players and one of their uh, coaches, their video coach,
Mm-hmm.
um, where there was an accused sexual assault by the coach on the young player.
Mm-hmm.
That was, it turns out, brought to management, brought to upper management of five or six guys, basically head coach, general manager, assistant general manager, president of hockey operations, the the who's who. Um, and instead of doing anything about it, then they did nothing for several weeks, then reported to HR, and then never talked about it again. Um, it basically ruined the player, the outcome of a sexual assault, and then um, continued to be hidden up until last winter when this player had the courage to come forward and actually file a lawsuit against the Blackhawks alleging what happened and started to get this into the light. In the end, where we're at is those guys with the Blackhawks, all but one of them has basically lost their job. There was an assistant GM who is now the GM in Winnipeg, Kevin Cheveldayoff, who was somehow absolved of guilt in not reporting anything. I think primarily because nobody remembered him being at the meeting where this assault was talked about amongst the managers other than himself.
Mm-hmm.
And so his role in what should have happened was so minor that he wasn't really held to any standard um, from a professional standpoint. From a personal standpoint, from a moral standpoint, he should be held to the same standard, but a lot of people along the chain of command should have been because nobody did anything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then the head coach, Joel Quenneville of the Blackhawks at the time, then was also the head coach of the Florida Panthers this year, resigned. The general manager, who was managing back then of the Blackhawks, resigned. The guys have moved on from the Blackhawks in recent years, apart from this, that have not really been heard from. Um, so at this point, for this particular incident, I believe the heads that were going to roll have rolled.
Mm-hmm.
There is a whole nother side to this that is the league's actions or inactions that don't necessarily fit into covering the Chicago Blackhawks in our good, bad, and ugly. Um, but I would also give the league an ugly for the way that they have gone about stepping into this situation, handling situation, um, censoring or not censoring, but fining the Blackhawks for the actions that they didn't take 11 years ago. Um, Basically, just a slap on the wrist kind of
Say
thing.
not even that.
Um, it was a $2 million fine to the Blackhawks by the
Mm-hmm.
league for failing to report this. Um, Keep in mind that they basically did far greater punishments to the Arizona Coyotes, who
Uh-huh.
tested out some rookies, or some draft eligible prospects. They find them first round draft picks for a couple years. They had a $3 million fine to the New Jersey Devils several years ago for an illegal contract they signed with one of their players. To take something that is hockey related and penalize it more than something that is universally human related, like an actual like legal crime that was not reported, um, to be punished less than violating the NHL's rules is an abysmal state of leadership in every aspect. And honestly, taking in the content, if you took in hockey content over the past month, you have heard this talked about a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And you cannot have the type of evil, and I'm going to call it evil because that's what
Yeah.
the attack on the player was. That's what the management did when they did nothing to defend this player and get this player help and find justice. Um, when you take in that much content regarding the actions of evil, it weighs on you. It weighed
Mm-hmm.
on myself. Um, there were days I felt depressed just having this in my mind, but knowing that it's part of the sport that I love and that I watch and that I promote and do a podcast on. And so I couldn't just bury my head in the sand and say, I don't want to hear about this. I'm going to skip these parts of the podcasts that talk about this. And I'm just going to ignore as much as I can because it's just too heavy. It's too awful. This is my form of entertainment and escape. And I don't want this to be a painful experience. Um, if I don't like a movie, I'll turn it off.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I can't do that with this because there's justice that needed to happen. I'm still not sure that justice has happened. Um, we're heading that direction. There will be a multi-million dollar settlement. I'm sure that
Oh
somehow
yeah.
here's millions and millions of dollars to the guy that was wronged. That fixes things, and that doesn't fix things. Um, it really doesn't. Um,
Mm-mm.
I don't think justice is a monetary amount of anything, and so um, there's part of me that is deeply disappointed in the league, um, for the way this has not been handled.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that then affects the way that I look at the league, of the sport that I love, of wishing it was better and knowing that it's not, and it's probably not going to be. Um, so there's a part of my heart that kind of breaks for, I guess, for anything that fails to reach just a decent human standard.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I found different points questioning, like, how much do I want to participate in watching NHL hockey? Um, should there be, just at some point here shortly, um, a call to boycott a weekend of games until the NHL does more than the minimum or even below minimum
I'll
that they
say
have done
below the minimum
already?
right here. Yep.
Um, to send a message to the leagues like, we're still upset about this. And until you see people like, look, we're not going to games this weekend. We're not watching on TV this weekend. We're not like, until you see like a swell that like hits them in the pocketbook,
Say vote with your
they're,
wallet.
yes, until you hit their wallet with your wallet, it won't change.
Yep.
And I honestly don't see that happening on a big enough scale in any way to
Mm-mm.
make a difference. And so something like this, I guarantee you, will happen again. Will come out. It might be 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Um, whatever they are doing to correct this, you can't correct evil.
Nope.
It's and it's not being called evil, which is, again, I don't expect it to be, because while people have been hammering down on the Blackhawks and calling them out, dragging them to the, into the light and beating them up in public as much as they can, I guarantee you, if this was any other team with the same situation, they would have exacted the exact same way.
Yep.
Don't think that your favorite team would have had any higher moral standing than what the Blackhawks did. Don't fool yourself into that
Mm-hmm.
because they would not have. That's not the way that the league is set up. That's not the way that sports are set up. That's not the way that hockey is set up. It's set up for success and winning at all costs, even if it costs the life of a young man.
Yep.
And that is truly the most heartbreaking thing that I think I've taken out of this is the reality of just how evil the sport is that I love.
Mm-hmm. Say I wasn't a fan of Batman before all this, but with how little action he has done, I'm even less of a fan of him as the commissioner of the league. I thought it was a joke for how he handled things. So.
Yeah, and I know there's legal ramifications to everything that is said once these things go public,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because this is all going to end up in a courtroom. It's all going to end up over money. It's all going to end up over who's guilty, who's not guilty of what, to what degree. And every lawyer is going to tell you, don't say anything because we don't want anything to be used against us in a court of law. Right? That's
Mm-hmm.
why the officer says anything you say can be used against you in a court of law. The same's true of anybody involved in this. And so it's all everybody button up, everybody lawyer up, and
Uh-huh.
let's just drag this out. And the further they can drag out things, the less and less it's part of the public eye. And
Mm-hmm.
eventually it's just kind of like, oh yeah, then like somewhere this spring, um, probably during the Olympic break, where there's no games being played and eyes are not on the NHL, it's on something else. There will be a release of the Blackhawks have settled with John Doe, um, to the tune of $51 million, and um, the matter is now closed,
Mm-hmm.
and that everybody will just be excited to move on. I guarantee you, whatever release and conclusion comes to it will be tried to as minimized as possible, and then hey, here's the next shiny thing we're doing.
Yep.
Um, and so it's yeah, it's beyond disappointing. It's beyond discouraging.
Yep.
Um, it's truly heartbreaking.
I'd agree. Definitely a sad state of affairs on all accounts, and yeah, I think it'll continue to be that way for quite a while. So yeah, I think we come grade below ugly and call it despicable for sure, and yeah, just see what comes. Hopefully, something comes up with, like I said, with Gary Bettman or anything like that. But I'm not holding my breath for it, unfortunately.
Mhm. Um, I guess one thing we didn't mention, if you don't know much about this story, you can certainly find more about it.
Mm-hmm.
Look at anything that Rick Westhead has done, anything that Katie Strang has done. Um, but if it's not a story that you really care about, because you can't care about every sexual assault in the world, um, don't go too far down the road,
Mm-hmm.
um, because it will fill your mind with things that you don't need to fill it with if
Yep.
it's not important to you. Um, because it goes on from there, and then the guy that
Uh,
did things to this adult went and did something to a child, and it's
yep.
well a minor, maybe not a child, but a minor,
Right.
um, for which he was convicted of and served like 9 months in jail.
Mm-hmm.
This is a hockey podcast, and we're talking about this because it's hockey, but we could go far beyond anything hockey related and just talk about this outside of hockey
Yep.
for a long time. But that's not the purpose of this podcast. And so we should probably move on to the next thing, as awkward of a transition as we can make to something
Yeah.
to something else.
I will say last thing I was gonna say is if you know of somebody who's being abused, please speak up, help them
Indeed.
out. So
Indeed.
yeah, that's the last thing I want to say on that for now. So yeah, let's best we can move on to Colorado and see what we think they're doing.
So Colorado. Well, it's a funny thing, that Colorado team,
Sure is. Sure
because I
is.
think we all had them for really, really good this year.
Huh?
And they haven't been really, really good.
Not really.
they certainly didn't start off the season really, really good.
No, no,
Now,
they
they
sure
didn't have
didn't.
McKinnon to start the year. I think he missed the first 3 games, I think it was.
Sounds like that.
Uh,
Yeah.
getting over COVID, which still takes, like, even though you're back and you're not, transmissive or anything anymore, and you can come play again, your body isn't fully recovered to
Mm-mm.
McKinnon levels. Um, and he has not played at a McKinnon level. Like you would think that he would have been in, conversation for a Hart this year, like the ability that he has, and he's not. Um, but some of that has to do with the whole team being down.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I think it's possible Colorado is another team that's like, why do we play the regular season?
Oh yeah.
We have nothing to prove in the regular season. We're going for the playoffs. We're going for the cup. There's no reason to kill ourselves trying to be the best. So maybe that's some of it. I think a lot of it is some of the issues they were going through, and
So,
sometimes good teams start slow.
yep. I mean, they're 8-5-1 overall, but they're 7-2-1 in their last 10, which means they
Hmm.
only had one win for quite some time.
And I think lost in some of this is the fact that they made a goaltending change,
Also, that
right?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
They lost Grubauer, who'd been there for the last 2 or 3 years, to Seattle as a free agent, and then traded away to get Darcy Kemper from Arizona. And it takes the team time to adjust to a different
Oh
goaltender,
yes.
because half of what you do as a defenseman trusts your goaltender
Oh
to
yes.
not give up a chance that you're going to potentially allow by taking a chance,
Right.
either for an offensive play or to make a good defensive play. Like if it's a 2-on-1 and you're defending it, it's like you have to trust your goaltender to say, I can take away the pass and trust you with the shot.
Mm-hmm.
But then he lets that shot go in, and you're like, okay, well, next time I need to take away the pass and then jump over and try and take away the shot. And then, like, until you can have your defenseman comfortable and trust your goaltender, your defense is not set. And
Yes.
that's a major, major thing when it comes to team sport, is having your defense set.
Oh
And
yes.
so um, they are playing better as of late. They will eventually figure it out. I'm not worried at all about Colorado
No.
making the playoffs or
Um,
doing damage in the playoffs. I see nothing in Colorado that is concerning to me going forward.
nope. And if you
It's
sort by point percentage, they're actually third in their division. Or
hmm
yeah, instead of fifth based on points. So
yeah, they played
that's gotta count for something.
they played the least amount of games in their division by 2 over Dallas and 3 or 4 over anybody else.
Uh huh. Quite a few games in
So
hand. So
they'll they'll be just fine.
just
Every team throughout the year goes through slumps,
mm-hmm.
right? You're gonna have sections of these 10 games where you're not that great. Some teams start with them, some teams end with them, some teams have them somewhere in the middle. I'm not concerned.
Nope. Neither am I. So give them a good, and let's move on to Dallas. What are your thoughts on that?
Dallas to me is like Philadelphia that we mentioned in the other podcast,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like, I know they exist. I know
Yep.
they're not lighting it up. I know they're not trash, trash.
Yeah, kind of.
Uh, I think maybe expectations for Dallas were higher than they should have been, given the fact that they have 4 goaltenders and not one of them is a starter.
Huh.
Um,
Yeah.
and the fact that this team just seems to never really put it all together until you get closer to the playoffs.
Which is
You
frustrating
know,
as a fan.
certainly frustrating as a fan. Um, again, they're literally 500, as 500 as you can be. They're 7-7-2. They're 4-4-2 over their last 10.
Sheesh.
It's like, uh, okay, so they're middle of the pack, so they could get hot and push for a playoff spot. They could go cold and push for a good draft pick. They could go either way, or they
Yeah.
might just ride this murky middle a whole season long, and that wouldn't surprise me either.
Mm-mm. Me either.
I guess I can't qualify them as good
Yeah.
with that, so I guess they kind of get a bad.
That's kind of what I was thinking. We'll give them a bad, and now we got your chef from Minnesota Wild.
Here's one word that describes them:
Wild?
wild. I just I yeah, so they're technically leading their division, so
Uh-huh.
they gotta be good. Um, yeah, I don't watch many of their games. Um, I couldn't tell you many of their players. I know they had an unexpectedly great year last year.
Right.
I didn't think it would last into this year.
Uh-huh.
And I think by the time we get through the year, they're still third or fourth in their division because I still think Colorado is better than them. I still think Winnipeg is better than them.
Correct. Yeah.
And so this will even out. I think they're tops in their division primarily because they played more games than anyone in their division, apart from Arizona, which
Right.
doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, no, I expect them to be good, but not number one in their division, so I think you're right. I think they'll finish 2, 3, maybe that first wild card spot. But
mhm.
yeah, no, I'm good with giving them a good, which
Um,
leads us to Nashville.
oh, wow. Nashville started out the year good.
Uh-huh.
They were, I think, second or third in the division for a while.
Uh-huh.
They've cooled off as of late.
A little bit. Not terrible, but a
Part
little
of
bit.
this, I think they were kind of filling in that top four spot in the division because Colorado wasn't there yet.
Right. Yep.
Like we knew the top four was probably going to be Winnipeg, Minnesota, Colorado, St. Louis. Like we know those four teams are kind of better than the other four, and so they were just kind of they were sitting in someone else's seat.
We're holding the spot,
um,
keeping it warm for you.
yeah, and now they're where they should be.
Yep.
Um, so is that good for them? Eh,
Sure.
they're better than Dallas. So
They're better than 500, so
yeah,
eh,
we'll give them a good.
sure.
Um, as an interesting note, um, Justin, do you happen to have NHL stats up right now?
Let me.
No, no,
Are
no,
you
no,
talking
no,
about
because
their home wins?
you can't go look,
Okay.
okay? Because one of their players is on the leaderboard for goals this year.
Oh.
One that I like, and I was actually going to quiz you on goals this year, probably when we get to Edmonton, of how many of the top, what is this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, the top 10 goal scorers so far this year, could you name? And
Oof.
actually, I'd go top nine because I assume there's a tie at 10, and it's just not listed on here.
Right, yeah.
Um, but this guy for the Predators is in the top nine for goals this year.
So I have not a clue. I mean, the only ones I know are like Jamie Benn or Joe Pavelski, and I don't think they're leading it.
Well, we're looking for Nashville, and those are all Dallas
Nashville.
players.
Oops. Nashville. All right, we are in Nashville. Oh, Matt Duchene?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Matt Duchene making a comeback with the goal
he
scoring.
sure
I mean,
is.
that's quite a thing. Like if you had asked me, hey, where's Matt Duchene in goal score this year versus the league, I would not have said top 10.
No, maybe top 50%? Percent, not players, percent? Yeah,
Yeah,
that's definitely a surprising stat for me as well. That's you're like, wait, what? Who?
it's basically taken him 2.5 years to get settled into Nashville.
I mean, I guess as long as he's settled in.
Yeah, I mean, they've always had trouble scoring goals, so hey, you got
All right.
somebody. That's good.
I'd say take him as you can get him, I guess. But yeah, no, that
Mhm.
is shocking to me. I would have lost that bet in preseason. That's for sure.
Oh, there's some more bets you would have lost here when we get to the leaders and goals. I
Oh yeah.
promise you.
Oh yeah. Indeed. So, anything else for Nashville?
Nope. Good on you, Nashville.
All right, and that bumps us to St. Louis.
Right where we expected them to be,
Uh huh.
which is good. So that's good.
Good.
They haven't gone trash. They've cooled off a little bit as of late. They were on a tear to start the year. What did they
Uh
win?
huh.
They were one of like the four teams that started off the year like undefeated.
Yeah,
Like there
which
was
is crazy.
it was like who's the last one to fall? And I think it ended up being Carolina. Um,
Yes.
they won like 10 games in a row before they lost to Florida or
Which
something
that's
like that.
still insane. And that was quite a game. I think that was an overtime game too, wasn't it? If I remember right, for their first loss.
Maybe.
Or no, they don't have any overtime losses, so couldn't have been for Carolina. So yeah, I think that's just a really close game.
Yeah.
But
Um,
yeah.
but anyway, St. Louis started off hot. They've cooled off a little bit, but Tarasenko looks great.
Uh huh. That's what I was about to say. It looks like he's having fun again.
still has the request in to be traded.
Right.
So we'll see what happens
But you know
there.
what? I will say I've seen a lot of players ask to be traded and then just have a poor attitude and poor demeanor. So kudos to him for showing up to work and doing well at it.
Indeed. Indeed.
Okay, so to wrap up the division, we got ourselves some Winnipeg Jets.
We're right, also kind of where we
Uh
were
huh.
expecting them to be. So good on you, Winnipeg.
Good,
Um,
good.
I feel like a team with Connor Hellebuck will always be in the playoff picture and always be a threat to beat you every night.
Oh, yeah.
And
So
I
he's
think they've
Kyle Connor in that list for top 10.
Kyle Connor is in that list for top 10. Very
Right.
good. He is tied with Matt Duchene at 12 goals.
Oh, that's still so weird that Duchene's on that list.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, no good for the Jets. Anything else for them?
Nope.
All right, well, let's pop on over to the Pacific Division and start off with the Ducks.
Quack diddy quack diddy quack diddy. What the heck?
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with them, too,
Over their last 10 games, they are 8-1-1.
which is insane. Like, where did that come from?
Absolutely insane. Um, so good on you, Anaheim. We were not expecting this out of you.
Mm-mm.
This is again, um, I call this the Buffalo syndrome, where Buffalo the last several years would start off hot and they'd be like one of the top two or three teams in their division. And then you'd get past Christmas and they just fall off a cliff and they end up one of the
Uh-huh.
top three teams in the draft lottery. I don't know if Anaheim's heading for that or not, because I think Anaheim actually has goaltending where Buffalo never really did.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, that does. Goaltending adds a lot. What's the phrase that Merrick always says?
um, if you have goaltending, it's 70% of your team. If you don't have it, it's 100%.
Yep, and that definitely shows. You definitely know.
Um, I think there's also other reasons of like, um, you have some really good play from some guys that don't typically play this well. Um, and they have a Trevor Zegras, who's again this kind of like Raymond in Detroit, where it's a young rookie guy coming in, adding some life, adding some offensive pop and sizzle and excitement and energy to a team that's been losing for several years that just kind of needs that kick. Um, so yeah, good on good on Anaheim for winning games, you know. Um, and we could say if we wanted to that the uh, the Anaheim Ducks are beneficiary of being in what was dubbed the worst division in hockey, which was the Pacific this year, because everybody thought, oh well, that one that one basically has Vegas, maybe Edmonton, and everybody else is potentially going to be crap. And lo and behold, some people think it's one of the strongest in the league. Huh, imagine that, how anything that we once thought we were wrong about. Mm, yeah, I don't think it's one of the strongest, but I think Anaheim has benefited from maybe playing some teams that aren't maybe as good as some of the other teams, particularly if you think of like the Metro that has just a murderer's row
Ugh.
of teams that are good.
Yeah, that's
Um,
crazy.
it's different playing, Washington, then followed up with Carolina, then having to go into Pittsburgh, than it is being able to be like, okay, so we're gonna go play Seattle, then we're just gonna drive up the road and play Vancouver, and then we'll come back home and we'll play San Jose. It's like,
And then the
oh,
Kings. Yeah.
yeah, like, I think you're beating up on your division a little bit.
Right. I mean, it's always
But
hard to
that
say
said,
because you got to play. You got to beat the teams in front of you, as they say. But
yeah, I think I think in the end though, you can only win the games that you play.
mm-hmm.
You can only beat the team in front of you. And they've done that 8 of the last 10 times.
That they
So
have, which is
good on
crazy.
good on you, Anaheim. You're
Mm-hmm.
one of the you're one of the feel good stories of the year so far.
Yeah. Which, as a Flames fan, it's like, yay.
I think Flames fans have bigger issues than the Anaheim
Right. You know, as
Ducks.
long as if both teams make it, as long as they don't play each other in the first round, because The Ducks have always seemed to have the Flames' kryptonite in the playoffs. I think they're responsible for like the last, or not last time, but like the past 2 or 3 times before that for the Flames being booted. So,
Uh,
but let's not bring that up. So
uh,
yes, good for the Ducks. Very surprising. I think you kind of talked about either this year or last year how they should be on the uptick, and then I wasn't buying it, but apparently I should have been buying it.
yeah, I was a year early on them last year, thinking that they were going to start to turn around. I've been a year early on a lot of things.
Yeah,
So
me too.
we're going to take all my takes from this last off season
Right,
and play them back
put them in a time capsule.
for next season. And I'm going to roll with those, whatever they are, and be like, okay, some of these are going to hit because you say the same thing long enough and eventually it becomes true.
Pretty much. Pretty much. So good for the Ducks. Anything else on them before we move on?
Who's next?
All right. So next we have Calgary, my team, which I will let you start with him for the same reasons I started with Detroit.
So, what I know of Calgary this year is they brought in Jacob Markstrom last year,
Mm-hmm.
and he did not have a Jacob Markstrom necessarily year. And I
Mm-hmm.
think this year now he's living up to the $5 million, $6 million goaltender that he is.
Oh
Like
yes.
if you're going to pay a goaltender that amount of money, he needs to play at that level,
Mm-hmm.
and he is. I think I don't necessarily know that losing your captain in Mark Giordano was good, but I imagine it probably had to solidify the locker room in a different way than if he was still there. Sometimes change breeds positive change, and sometimes it doesn't. Um, I'm not going to tell you that this team would be even better if Mark Giordano was there, but it forces everybody else beneath him to step up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then, so if you have goaltending and you have defense that's trying to fill in for Mark Giordano, your defense is probably going to be pretty solid. And then with a solid defense, the offense can play,
Yes.
you know?
Yes.
And there's always been enough talent in Calgary to score goals. It's
Oh
just been
yes.
horridly inconsistent. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think there must be some more consistency. And I know there's one particular individual that's kind of coming out of nowhere and playing well above his station,
Mm-hmm. Are
um, which I'm going to have you pronounce his name because I'm not going to try.
you talking about
Um,
Mangiapane?
yes, that boy. And so it's one of those kind of years where, like, hey, you're having this hot special year, which I'm really excited for you because it's like, man, if you have a team that's winning games consistently, it's really fun to watch.
Yes. Yes, it
Um,
is.
I'm I'm hopeful that whatever they do, they can replicate on the second half of the season after the
Mm-hmm.
break. Because I'm concerned that this could be one of those. Boy, they started the year really really well, and now expectations are really really high, and then everything cools off on the second half. And it's like, oh, we kind of stumbled in the playoffs and we're knocked out in the first round again.
Yeah.
So hopefully, what's happening there is legitimate and long lasting.
Which,
Um,
yeah, I'm
so
hoping the
that
same thing.
that that's my view from a distance.
Yep. Yeah, no, it's definitely because Flame seasons of past is they start off very slow. Then end of November, beginning of December, they heat up and kind of bump themselves up into the playoff position. And then the break hits. And from the break, they usually stumble out the gate, fall out of playoff position. And then from there, they can either recover and get back in, or they don't. So this year has been like just a complete upside down. I'm not used to them playing this well out of the gate. So it's been so much fun to watch. Like some games early in the season, I'm like, it's late. I'm going to the third period. It's 2-2. I've stayed up for those games before and just been let down. So, and then just watch them win like 4-2, 5-2. It's been great. But the biggest thing this year is they're playing with consistency and they're playing
Mm-hmm.
smart hockey. I have seen so many less breakaways that they have given up to the other team. Like, it used to be like one or two a game. Now it's like one every couple of games. And it's something weird and fluky that happens for the other team to get that breakaway. So I mean, they'll have a turnover. Everybody's skating backwards. Everybody's checking hard. Everybody is trying to play good defense on that side. And then yeah, they're just able to get capitalize. And I know the first couple games of the season they were trying hard, had a lot of shots on goals, but no wins. But then they finally got a couple to click, which I'm very glad they did, because if you don't get wins trying a new system, you kind of stop buying in after a while.
It's true.
And so I was kind of afraid that was going to happen, but I think they bought in Daryl's other system, and it turns out he's not a 3-2 guy anymore, because they've had some games where they've won like 5-0.
Mm.
So, but no, I think Sutter has him playing smart hockey. I think his conditioning has him staying and playing harder in games, because before they would play like 40 minutes of a game, then kind of coast on by for the next 20, which would always bite him in the butt.
I think that's Detroit's problem right now.
Yeah, it's very frustrating as a fan to watch that. But no, it's been great fun, and I'm concerned with you too for the Olympic break, because, like I said, traditionally from the All Star break they haven't come back together well. But I'm hoping the way Sutter's coaching them, have them in the ground, have them focused, they'll keep on plugging away. So no, I'm very happy with how this year's gone, and I hope it continues. And then good goaltending, like you said, very good goaltending for both goaltenders. So he can do a whole lot more when you know the guy behind is going to stop it, or probably stop it.
Indeed. Indeed. So much
So
confidence comes from good goaltending.
yeah, and you
It
can
just
just
permeates the whole team.
oh yeah, you can definitely tell too. And I will say with Giordano leaving, I think it's a good thing and a bad thing. Um, yeah, it was kind of a bummer for him to leave, but at the same time, it's definitely giving Oliver Shillington a chance to kind of step up and go, because I don't think he would really have a chance to shine without or with Giordano there, and of course the leadership that Giordano brings. But with him
Hmm.
gone, kind of like what you were saying, other people have to step up, other people have to start going, and I think that's kind of what's happening here.
Has Giordano been replaced as captain?
No, there is currently no captain. And the running theory that I'm buying is they want to name Chucky as captain, but he's not signed past this year. And so, if for whatever reason they can't re sign him, they don't really want to have a captain for just one season and have him go somewhere else.
That
So,
makes sense.
oh yeah, which, yeah, definitely makes sense. So, just alternates this year, no captains, and we'll see what next year brings.
Interesting.
Mm hmm.
I forgot Kachuk signed that shorter, like, bridge deal
Yeah, I think it was like a three
during that big
year.
offseason.
Yeah, or
Mm-hmm.
4 years. Yeah, it was pretty short. So, yeah, it'll be interesting because he's up. Johnny's up this year. I think Mangiapane's up this year as well. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
So this is a year where you're selling everything at the deadline
Uh
to really make a run because
huh.
it could all be apart.
Uh huh. Which there's some talk about Mangiapane playing in the Olympics, which is awesome. You know, get some Flames players in there. But if he goes, that means his price tag is going up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but no, we'll slap a good on Calgary while I can before something weird happens. Hopefully, nothing weird happens, but you never know. It's a weird league.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I guess we should probably move on to Edmonton.
Okay. Well, I've been looking forward to this one.
Huh.
All right. So, those of you that don't know, Edmonton, Calgary, diametrically opposed rivals, heated, hated rivals. You can't love one and hate the other, and
Nope.
vice versa. Or you have to love, if you love one, you hate the other.
Mm-hmm.
Me, as an observer of the game of hockey, I find Edmonton vastly, vastly entertaining, mostly in part to Connor McDavid,
Yep.
also in part to Leon Draisaitl,
Yep.
also in part to Mike Smith, who's injured right now.
Yep.
Um, so, um, I have watched as many Edmonton games as I have Red Wing games.
Oh wow.
Basically, my calendar, I go through and I put down all the Red Wing games and I put down all the Edmonton games, so my wife knows. Oh, Edmonton's playing at 9 o'clock tonight. you're not free tonight. Um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and so it has been, and this started like a year and a half ago too, just because I found watching McDavid more entertaining than anybody else in the league.
Right. Well,
Um,
I mean, I can't
because
blame you. So.
it's like watching Michael Jordan in his prime or Tom Brady in his prime. You either watch him because you hate him or you watch him because you love him.
Yeah.
Like he's that, you know, polarizing of a player.
Oh yeah.
Every now and then, and sometimes more often now than then, he will do something that just puts your jaw to the floor because you've not seen anything like this before. And certainly not at the consistent rate that he does it. He has,
Uh-huh.
in the last 2 weeks, had two different goals that he scored. In both situations, he beats either three or four defensemen, then the goaltender
Uh-huh.
in short succession. It's not like he beats the four defensemen in the neutral zone and then has a clear breakaway. It's as soon as he clears the defense, he's just past the dots and then snaps a shot over the goaltender or swoops around and tucks it behind the goaltender. Um, he's using basically the unexpected him showing up behind the defenders in front of the goaltender to use that split second of where'd you come from? What?
Yeah.
How come my guys didn't stop you at the door?
That's what you're supposed
Um,
to do. How'd you let you in?
yeah. Um, and turn them into goals. That's what makes the highlight reels. He does that though if you watch his games. At other times too, he just doesn't get the goal. Right? So if you
Right.
score on one out of four of those, you have one highlight a game. But if you watch him play, you'll see a lot more highlights that just don't result in a goal,
Mm-hmm.
which is very entertaining to watch. Now, there have been many people on the one that he did against the Rangers, where he did go through four defensemen and then beat the goaltender. Um, say that's goal of the year. Let's move forward.
Mm-hmm.
The only time it will ever be topped is if he decides to do it against five defensemen and beat the goaltender.
Right.
Which honestly, yes, I could see your point. However, if you watch that replay, what you will see is you will see four guys on defense each give about 25% of their effort. If you're going to beat if you're going to stop Connor McDavid, you need 100% from everybody involved. Actually, you need 110% from everybody involved.
Or just somebody, tackle him, trip him, do something.
Or in a one-on-one, you got to give him your best.
Mm-hmm.
In a two-on-one, you both have to give him your best. Like
Mm-hmm.
you can't just be like everybody. Yes, it's a beautiful and amazing goal, and honestly, it came at a time when they were down in the third period.
Right. And
You're
his
down a
face
goal,
was priceless after
and
he scored.
that's another thing I like about him is like he's excited to score and to
Uh-huh.
score that way, right? That's one of
Uh-huh.
the things that made Ovechkin so much fun
Oh
is
yeah.
he loves to score goals and he's willing to show it. There's not this like if you ever watched a Henrik Zetterberg goal, you weren't even sure he scored the goal. He kind of smiles.
Right.
Or same thing with Pavel Datsyuk. Like there's
Act
guys I've
like
grown
you've
up watching.
scored
It's like
before.
act like you scored before. It's like you know what? Act like you've never scored like that before.
Right, yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so that's been fun to watch because when McDavid is having fun, the league is better.
Right.
Um,
I will begrudgingly agree with that.
now, so for the goal you're talking, yeah, it'll probably be a McDavid goal. Whether it be that one or one of the other ones,
Yeah.
don't know, don't care. I really don't. I couldn't tell you who was goal of the year last year or goal of the year
Right, yeah.
before that.
Neither could I.
Right? It doesn't really matter. But as far as being at that caliber, it is. This is the key point that I want to make about that goal, and even the one that followed a few days later, where again, third period, they give up a goal. 30 seconds later, he comes back and beats three guys and ties the game. Right?
Uh-huh.
They eventually send that into overtime, and then they win in overtime. Or actually, they win in the shootout. Um, he's scoring these kind of goals at critical moments in games where their team needs a goal. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's that running back that breaks off that 15-yard run to ice a game, or it's that receiver that makes that huge catch, or the guy that hits that perfect shot. or the guy that hits that home run or strikes out that batter or whatever it is that your team needs in that moment. We need somebody to do something. And he keeps saying, guys, I got this. And he's got it in a way that nobody's really done before. We have not seen in this era of hockey. Here's what I'm calling those plays. I'm calling those the $12.5 million plays. Because if you are the highest paid player in the league, you need to be making the highest possible goal that you can, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't expect somebody making $10 million to make the same plays that McDavid's making. I
Right.
expect him to be
Yep.
making the top plays in the league as the top paid player. The same is true of goaltending. If you are making $10 million as a goaltender, I expect some $10 million saves. If I'm seeing the
Mm-hmm.
exact same saves from a $5 million goaltender, I don't need a $10 million goaltender. Prove that you are that much better than everybody else. He's actually proving that he's that much better than everybody else.
Oh, yes.
And I would say at this point, $12.5 million is a steal for what he is doing
Yes.
because there's nobody else in that league. I think does Tavares make 12 or 12 and a half as well?
Oh, something like that, yeah.
Tavares makes a ton of money. I have not seen a single Tavares highlight this year.
No.
Not one. And so for what he is doing, what he's being paid, this is exactly what I would want from the top athlete, performer, and paid player in the league. So yeah, anytime he does this, like, darn right, that's $12.5 million goal right
Mm-hmm.
there. It's a
Yep.
$12.5 million play. That's $12.5 million player, and that should be the standard for anybody that wants to make that money. You got to be able to say, okay, can you do what he does? If you
Mm-hmm.
can't do what he does, you are not worth anywhere near what he's worth.
Yep. John
Because that's
Tavares, looking on Cap Friendly, is 11 million for his AV, and that's nowhere near the production or skill. Nowhere
I'm, I
near.
was I was trying to remember who makes anywhere near McDavid money. Um, I think I think there's Carlson makes $11 million, the defenseman in San Jose. I know there's goaltenders that make in the 10, 10 and a half. I don't think any goaltender makes 11. Um,
No.
McDavid's kind of like in his own tier, in his own level, in basically every way. And so, one of the questions that is being posed is we all agree McDavid is the best player in the league, correct?
Correct.
Who is the second best player in the league?
Ugh. Probably Leon Draisaitl right now.
Okay, I could give you that. I mean, you can look at the stats this year and say, yeah, it's probably Draisaitl. Um, third, fourth, fifth. Who else would you throw in there right now?
Oh man, I mean probably Ovi because his goal scoring machine like always.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Um, who else is turning up right now? I haven't pulled up the stats yet, so I can't think off the top of my head. I mean, we'll put Johnny Gaudreau on the list. A little bit of Homer
Yep.
love.
Let's go Ovi. Let's go. Um, Draisaitl's number two. Ovi's number two. I know he hasn't done it this year, but he's done it in the past. Like Austin Matthews has been considered one of the best players in
Yeah.
the league.
Uh-huh.
Um, I mean, he scores a lot of goals. He's kind of in that Ovi camp where it's
Yep.
like when he's scoring, he's unstoppable kind of thing. And he's there more often than he's not most of the time. Um, so the question that's being asked is the gap between McDavid and whoever's number two, is that greater than the gap between two and the fifth best player, right?
Yep.
Fifth, fourth best player. Like, so if you could have Ovechkin, or you could have Gaudreau, or you could have Draisaitl, or you could have Matthews, are they closer together than any of those guys are to McDavid? Um, and I'd take your thoughts on that.
See, originally when you asked this, I thought number one and number two were closer, just because Leon Draisaitl, his stats have been unreal this year. But
Mm-hmm.
then the two goals, not the one, but two goals that McDavid had that we just talked about, I think that just sets him far and apart because I don't know who else in this league can make a play like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was just unreal. Like I said, as a Flames
Oh,
fan, I like watching him play, except when he plays the Flames.
hmm
And yeah, so I think the gap is bigger between him and number two than number two and number five.
I would agree. And here's kind of my case in point is that I will give you Leon Draisaitl as number two. All
Mm-hmm.
right. If McDavid doesn't exist, is Leon Draisaitl number one?
Probably. I mean, I think it's a
How?
tighter debate. It's a much tighter
How?
debate for the top five.
How without playing with Connor McDavid is Draisaitl one of the is the best player in the league?
Yeah. I mean, he has some unreal goals too, but just not on the same caliber as
He does, but
McDavid.
he has a lot of points on power plays that the power play cycles through McDavid, and Draisaitl's just got to shoot the pass that hits him,
Right? If you
or
shot
put
at
in the
McDavid,
rebound,
yeah.
or play the stretch pass, or like, or this is also what they're doing. McDavid is taking the top defensive pair
Uh huh.
off of the table
Yep.
for every team he plays, leaving Draisaitl with his line to play the second best. And there's a lot of teams you're going to play that your second best set of defensemen is nowhere near the level of what Draisaitl can bring. Right? You're going to lose that ice battle the majority of the time.
Yeah. Oh,
Because if you take Draisaitl off of Edmonton, McDavid's still McDavid.
oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And so yeah, the gap to McDavid right now is just several chasms deeper
Oh,
than it is anywhere behind him.
that's the only thing we'll say. Is I remember, I think it was 2 years ago, McDavid went out for about a month or so, and Draisaitl kept that team going and kept that team in the playoff spot. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
no question in my mind that McDavid's just leaps and bounds ahead of the next guy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It will be interesting to see what Edmonton does as we head towards the trade deadline.
Yep.
What are they going to do for goaltending? Because that is going to be their biggest millstone around their neck is when you
Mm-hmm.
hit games that matter and you're still throwing out Miko Koskinen and Mike Smith.
Yeah. You can
Now,
only
maybe they
cover
have
up so
some
many
found,
goals.
maybe they have some found money in this Skinner kid that's playing for them right now. But I don't know. All right, this is now it's time for the goals exercise. Okay,
Mm,
we have our top nine. You have already named. Um, we got Matt Duchene on there,
mm-hmm.
and then you give me one other. Was it Kyle Connor?
Yep.
Okay,
And of course,
so you have
Ovi.
those two. Ovi is on there. He's an easy one. He's number two at 15 goals.
Mm-hmm. I gotta say, McDavid's on there.
McDavid is on there with 12 goals, same as Matt Duchene and Kyle Connor.
I gotta say, Draisaitl's on there,
Draisaitl is leading the league with 18 goals. He's averaging more than a goal per game right now.
which that's insane.
That's absolutely stupid. Absolutely stupid. McDavid is averaging over 2 points a game. Draisaitl is averaging over a goal a game.
I mean, both of those are just mind-boggling. That they're on the same team doing that. So
This is the video game numbers
yeah, yeah.
year for
Oh
Edmonton.
my word. Mangiapane, is he on the list?
Mangiapane is tied with Ovechkin for
Okay,
second, 15
so that's
goals.
6. I know at one point last Lindholm was on that list, but I'm not sure if he still is.
He is no longer on that list.
Yep. Who else? Throwing a dart, Matthews.
Nope. Matthews just hasn't played enough games. I
Oh,
don't.
that's right.
He missed some time.
What about Stamkos?
No, I would have thought that Stamkos was on here with as much as I've seen him.
Yeah.
I'm guessing he must have like 9 or 10, and he's just behind this leaderboard.
Okay, yeah, probably. Oh, Terry for the Ducks.
Correct? Troy Terry,
Okay.
out of nowhere, just
Shot.
scoring like a madman.
So that's 7. So I got 2 left. East or West?
One of each.
One. Oh, gee, that doesn't help. um. Hmm. Trying to think of who else it would be. I mean, I'm sure I'm gonna go duh when I hear it, but
No, this is one of the reasons that I wanted you to go
oh,
through this exercise because there's always some surprises on these lists of guys
that's
that are having years that you didn't think about.
very true.
So alone at number nine on this list with 11 goals this year is Alex DeBrincat out of Chicago,
Never would have gotten that one.
right? In fourth, with 13 goals so far this year, is Chris Kreider.
Huh. Yep. Don't think I would have got that one either.
No, no,
Oh
he's he's
wow.
he's been this statistical anomaly. It's like I think he might have like 13 goals and 2 assists or something like that. I mean, his like, uh, yeah, yeah, he's basically just scoring goals a series, not doing much else.
Yeah, well,
Um,
I mean, hey, someone's got to score him. So
yeah, yeah. But that's the rundown of the leaderboard of the goals. The other thing I was going to mention was looking at the points totals.
mm-hmm.
Um, you have Draisaitl is actually leading right now with 35,
Uh huh.
McDavid behind him with 32, then Ovechkin with 30. Ovechkin is 8 points clear of the next guy. So those top three are either 8, 10, or 13 points clear, um, 1 month in of everybody else.
Gee, that's
Um,
crazy. Is it Johnny who's next? We're pretty close now.
yeah, tied are four guys. You have Troy Terry, Kyle Connor, Johnny Gaudreau, and Evgeny Kuznetsov, all with 22. And then Marchand and Lindholm with 20.
Okay.
An
Yep.
interesting name on this list is Nazem Kadri with 19.
He has been keeping his nose clean. Like
Yeah,
it's quite odd.
I think he's done well in the absence of some of the stars on
Yeah.
Colorado.
Yeah. Which I mean, that's what you want him to do. That's what you need him. That's
Yep.
what you brought him in for. So play good.
Okay.
Don't do anything dumb.
Well, that was a fun exercise to rabbit trail. That's just the way that we get to like some of the stats in the league is we just
Oh
gotta
yeah.
we gotta lock it into a team. So we should probably finish out the Pacific here.
Yeah. And I figure probably do some rapid fire on this one because the next one is the
Mm.
Kings.
Kings, I I guess they exist.
Right. They're over
Couldn't tell you
500.
how it is.
I
Yeah,
can
it's just
I can give them.
mushy middle.
Yeah.
That's good for them. It's
Yeah.
good for them because
I
that's
still
a
can
team
give them
that's
a good.
rebuilding that isn't in the trash.
Right. Seattle. Oof. Oh.
I think I might go ugly with Seattle.
Yep. I knew they were
Um,
doing bad, but I didn't realize how bad it was.
yeah, they give up a lot of goals for a
Oh,
team that was supposed to
oh my
have
word!
drafted a pretty good defense, like with what was optioned out there for them defensively. They have been a sieve, and that's bringing over Grubauer from Colorado. And I think
Uh,
suddenly people realized, hey, it's different playing behind Colorado's defense than it is behind an
yeah,
AHL defense. And
yeah.
yeah, that whole system has not worked at all.
No,
So
no,
it's
no,
ugly in Seattle. It's not sleepless in Seattle. It's
no.
ugly in Seattle.
Yes, they can't sleep because it's so ugly. All right. So next we got San Jose.
Um, again, a couple weeks ago, this would have been a good.
Uh huh.
Now it's a whatever. Um, I think I'm going to go with the Evander Kane stuff and give them a bad.
Yep. What a clown.
Yep.
So yep, I'm good with bad on that one as well. Brings us to Vancouver.
Um, that's ugly, and I'm not sure it's justifiable ugly
Eh.
because
Yeah.
Vancouver has been through the crap the last couple of years. Um, certainly last year, being forced to
Oh
finish
yeah.
out the season after being off for 2 weeks, and like, yeah, we just need you guys to kind of punching bag this for the rest of the year. And then they changed. I think they went through changed 10 players on their roster on their starting. Like 10 of their 20 skaters changed. Um, like they got rid of a bunch of guys, brought in a whole bunch of other guys, made some trades and stuff. That's a team that's still trying to figure out who the heck they are.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I
Um,
agree.
and I feel like there's always been, it's a Canadian market, right? It's a passionate Canadian market, and there's always
Yes.
pressure. And I think what happened is they had 3 years in a row where you had Brock Besser, Elias Pettersson, Quinn Hughes, all were Calder finalists. Two of them won the Calder Trophy. And you're like, boy, we have a whole bunch of youth.
Bunch
These
of
are
hope.
our guys, right? Which is fine. Then you had to sign them all to contracts and you couldn't afford the other people around them.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not quite ready to be the guy all the time without help. And Pedersen's struggling, honestly. Like, he's just struggling.
He is. Which
Besser has not taken another step from the steps he took on his rookie deal. He hasn't become, he should be one of those guys that's like up there in the scoring leaders, in the top 25, 30 probably. And I don't think he is. Um, for what he came in and started to do and what you thought he could do and what he should be doing for that team in the position he's in.
Yeah.
So I think you have a bunch of young guys that are underperforming based on their contracts. Maybe they are just performing what you would expect of these guys if there wasn't the pressure on them to
Mm-hmm.
be outstanding. Basically, they got just a little too good, a little too quick, and couldn't maintain that momentum when the reality of the salary cap hit.
Yep.
And so, as a Wings fan, my fear is that the Red Wings will end up doing the same thing to where we got these two rookies this year, and 3 years from now, they're going to be signing their, $8, $9 million deals. And it's like, are they ready to be an $8 million player?
Right. Handle that
And it's
pressure.
like, yes. Um, and sometimes it takes guys a couple years to kind of deal with the fact that, hey, I'm a multimillionaire now. I
Mm-hmm.
I have more expectation on me, and there's no help coming. It's mine now.
Yep.
It's like once you finally get promoted to the point where it's like, oh, I'm the one in charge now. Oh,
Oh my.
okay,
I'm
yeah,
the adulty adult? When did that happen?
yeah. Since when was I the adult in the room?
Yeah.
Um, so we'll say it's ugly just because it's Vancouver,
Mm.
and yeah,
Yep.
but
Definitely agree.
I think they were dealt and have dealt themselves a difficult hand.
I agree. I would be shocked if there aren't some big moves should things continue the way they are. So, with them getting ugly, it leads us to the last team, which is Vegas.
Oh my goodness! All right, let's do this. Hard to rapid fire. The biggest story of the year, apart from I guess Chicago, right,
Right. Maybe we
was
should have talked about it in the East.
Vegas, Vegas, Vegas. What are you doing? You going for Jack Eichel? Yep, we're going for Jack Eichel. You gonna make it happen? Nah, not right now. You gonna make it happen? Eh, maybe. You gonna make it happen? No. You gonna make it happen? Yep, we want it now. Oh, okay.
Uh,
Vegas was one of the teams that was talked about from the very start with Eichel.
mm-hmm.
And it turns out they were kind of the only ones that were super, super serious
Right,
because
as far as.
they actually got it done.
Yeah.
Um, so this is I think impressive right now that they are still playing that 500 hockey or better. They've
Mm-hmm.
actually picked it up a bit late because they had so many injuries.
Yep.
Um, Assuming that Eichel comes back and is anything close to what Eichel is, they will be amazing.
Uh
However,
huh.
I think there's something to be said of it will take Eichel a full off season to be ready to play Eichel again. So I see 2 years from now, or basically a year from now,
Yep.
and a year after that, Vegas is going to be stupid good.
I would agree.
While at the same time, I don't know how they work the salary cap because
Yeah.
as of right now, Eichel is in their LTIR. When
Mm-hmm.
he gets healthy, he comes off that. So that's a $20 million swing
Hmm.
because you've been over the cap by his 10. Well, now you got to be into the cap with his 10. So your relief goes
Woof.
away.
Uh-huh.
Um, for a team that's already around the salary cap bubble as it is.
Yep.
Um, I don't know what to do. They cannot actually field everybody healthy.
Yeah.
Like if if
They've run
if
into that a
if
couple
if,
times.
if you go to cap friendly, you can create a roster out of the players like a starting lineup or whatnot, and it will show you the totals. So if you take the guys that, hey, we want Pat Chiretti and Stone and Eichel, and we want Marcia So and Carlson, and and go through the list and put the guys in that should be their best players. It's an illegal system.
Mm.
So they're going to have to find somebody to stay on LTIR through the regular season. They're going to have to trade for some dead cap space, or they're going to have to trade somebody away that isn't Jack Eichel. Um, and
Mm-hmm.
whatever they do for that isn't going to make the defenseman better.
No.
And I don't think it's going to get them a better goaltender. So it will be interesting to see what they do. They may just have to outscore everybody. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, so we'll see. I'm also curious as to Jack Eichel comes back, plays well, they make the playoffs, and then playoff hockey starts, and Eichel has no idea what playoff hockey is. How does he fare in playoff hockey?
Kind of
Because
sink or swim at that point.
he's never seen it.
Oh, woof. That's rough. That's rough, man.
Yeah, especially if you're expected to be the 1C on a Stanley Cup contending team
Mm-hmm.
and your rookie, basically, playoff experience.
Yeah, that'll be a tall task. So hopefully he get his feet wet before he gets back, but who knows how everything's gonna fall out. So we're gonna give him a good, you thinking, or
Yeah, let's give him a good.
yeah, they're trending back up where we think they should be, so things are back on track. I think it's like you said, if this was a month ago, but now, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, alrighty, well that wraps up our last team. Any final thoughts or additions you'd like to add there?
I think I have many more things that I could say, but I think in the interest of time, we will save that for the next one.
Mm-hmm. Keep listening. So, alrighty, well I'm agree with you on there. So, on that thought, I am Justin.
I'm Alexander.
And this is the Hockey Podcast you're about to hear, which just did. So, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you later.
Bye.